My roommate recently loves watching a male streamer leave. I told her that the streamer was dead. She didn't believe it and said I was just sour grapes. But the male streamer was really dead. I remember clearly, I was the one who personally skinned him and dug out his heart. Dear ones, I'm Liv on time. Did you miss me? I just opened the door to the dormitory when I heard the sound from my roommate's phone. The streamer is online. Everyone please give me a little heart. Follow and like. Dear, you're finally online. I missed you so much. My roommate Kathleen was lying on the bed, holding her phone, blowing kisses at the male streamer on the screen. I want kisses, lots of kisses. I was puzzled. Kathleen had fair skin, a tall figure, a little beauty, not lacking in praise from male classmates at school. But now, why did she look like she had never seen a man? I unconsciously looked at my roommate's phone screen. On it was a man wearing a floral shirt. He was quite handsome, his face chiseled and perfect. Standard peach blossom eyes, a high nose bridge, and thin lips, although not a star more impressive than any star. Only, he was dead. Those peach blossom eyes were lifeless, his face pale, lips purple. He must have been dead for at least 10 days. Kathleen suddenly looked at me. What are you doing? Why are you staring at my phone? I smiled and kindly reminded, be careful, this streamer is dead. Are you crazy? Kathleen looked at me like I was a lunatic. Dead people lie in coffins and can't move, but George can sing and dance. How can he be dead? I sighed. Why didn't she believe me? I am a corpse person. 500 years ago, I fell in love with a heartless man, but was scalded to death in boiling water, skinned and hair pulled. Later, I absorbed the essence of heaven and earth, becoming a corpse person. But my love brain never changed. I liked seducing handsome men and liked skinning heartless men. 10 days ago, I was drinking at a bar in Phoenix and saw this streamer. His name was George. He was sitting on the main stage, holding a guitar, singing soft love songs. He was handsome, could sing, and had talent. How could I resist? I immediately flirted with him. After a song, George followed me to the hotel. As soon as he entered the room, he couldn't keep his hands to himself, eager to get down to business. I asked him, "Do you love me?" George was impatient, quickly saying he did. Then I revealed my dead, rotting corpse face, scalded by boiling water. George was terrified, begging for mercy. I asked again, "Why don't you love me when I am a rotting monster?" Before I finished, he stared blankly, had a heart attack, and died. George had a good face and tall figure, but was also heartless. I reached into his eye sockets, gently pulled down, skinned him, and dug out his heart. I know. Kathleen suddenly covered the phone screen, looking at me nervously. Ellie, you must have seen George being handsome and a new streamer, so you made up that he's dead to scare me away so you can monopolize him and become his top fan. Then she looked at me with disgust. You're so scheming, sour grapes? What a strange thought process. Laughable. Little girl, I don't care about the grapes. I only ate your beloved George's skin and heart. I kindly advised, a dead man coming back to life and streaming is a bad omen. Anyone who watches his live stream will fall seriously ill or have their energy sucked out and die. Kathleen shook her head. Ellie, you're getting more and more absurd. I returned to my seat, starting to apply my lipstick. I never lie, believe it or not. Ding. Kathleen's phone suddenly received a message. It was from George. Little sister, since I started streaming, you have been supporting me faithfully. I am very grateful. So I want to meet you tomorrow for a meal. Is that okay? Kathleen screamed in surprise. George wants to meet me. She held her phone tightly, rolling on the bed a few times, then looked at me smugly. Ellie, you're going to be so embarrassed. I looked at her with pity. Go ahead. The sooner you go, the sooner you'll die and be reborn. I must dress beautifully. Only then can I be worthy of George. Kathleen ignored my advice, got up from the bed, rummaging through her wardrobe, trying on various outfits for the date. Creak! The door opened again. Another roommate, Lily, came in looking excited. Ellie! Kathleen, I'm meeting my online boyfriend today. Can you come with me? Kathleen was enthusiastic. Of course. Lily's date was not at a restaurant or mall, but directly at a hotel. Kathleen teased, Lily, I didn't expect you to be so open. First meeting and heading straight to a hotel. Although it's our first meeting, we chat often. He's a good person. Lily blushed. He came from a distant city and wants to rest at the hotel. He promised not to touch me. Kathleen laughed. If he's a good person and won't touch you, why do you want Ellie and me to come along? Lily hurriedly explained, recently I keep hearing about people being murdered in hotels by online dates, so I'm a bit worried about my safety. Not wanting to ruin Lily's plans, Kathleen and I got a room opposite hers, agreeing to call her within 10 minutes. If she answered, she was safe. If not, we'd break in. We waited for hours, until midnight. When Lily finally messaged us, he's here. Kathleen rushed to the door, peering through the peephole, but after just a second, she stiffened, her face pale, unable to speak. What's wrong? Did you see a ghost? I pushed her aside and looked through the peephole. Outside stood a tall, lean man with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. He was standing sideways. I couldn't see his face, but just from the side profile. I knew he was George, whom I had skinned and taken the heart of 10 days ago. George, he's meeting other women besides me. Kathleen burst into tears. I always thought I was special to George, but now I see I was so naive. This man was a scumbag in life, and he's a scumbag in death. I patted Kathleen's shoulder. Don't cry for such a scumbag, it's not worth it. Don't badmouth him. Kathleen wiped her tears, defending George. George is so handsome, it's normal for him to date other girls at the same time. What kind of twisted logic is that? Can I then believe that because I'm so beautiful, it's normal for me to seduce and skin several heartless men at the same time? Ah! Suddenly, Lily's scream came from the other room. No, don't! Her scream was extremely terrified, so terrified that it was hoarse and painful. Kathleen's eyes widened. Why is Lily screaming so loudly? Then her face flushed. George, is he that strong? I rolled my eyes at Kathleen. Someone's dying. Do you think the scream would be loud? Kathleen was annoyed. Ellie, why do you keep talking about dead people? It's so ominous. Ding, ding, ding. Meanwhile, Kathleen's phone received a video message. It was from Lily. The camera showed a twisted, terrifying face. Lily's eyes filled with terror and despair. Crying blood, she wailed, "Help! Help me! I don't want to be eaten! It hurts so much!" Lily's face had been skinned, bloody, and pitted, with only her eyes still moving. Ah! Kathleen was so scared she dropped the phone, stuttering, Lily, her face was skinned? Yes, I explained seriously. George is dead. After being skinned, to maintain his appearance, he must skin live people and attach their skin to his face. Kathleen blurted out, You knew George was dead. Why didn't you stop him from hurting Lily? I was speechless. Please. I'm a corpse person, not a saint. In my previous life, I was skinned to death. Did anyone stop the heartless man from skinning me? Moreover, everything has cause and effect. Lily agreed to meet the dead George, even if I stopped it today. Lily would still die another day. Call the police! I'm calling the police now! Kathleen's usually dim mind suddenly brightened. She tremblingly picked up the phone, ready to call the police, but the screen suddenly showed a handsome man's face. It was George. Lily's face hadn't fully integrated with his, with some wrinkles, looking very strange. Kathleen, I want to meet you earlier. On the screen, George looked sinister, his eyes drooping, staring at the camera. You're at this hotel, right? I'm coming to find you now. Kathleen quickly hung up, terrified and at a loss. Kathleen, the dead man is coming to find us. Ellie, what should we do? As soon as she finished speaking, knock, 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 knock. The knocking on the door suddenly sounded. Kathleen was terrified. She tightly grabbed my hand and hid behind me. What should we do? He's coming to eat us. I rolled my eyes at her. He's not coming to eat us, he's coming to eat you. After all, it was you who agreed to meet the ghost. Please, you have to help me. Kathleen immediately knelt down before me. You know about the dead man's live stream and you know about ghost dates. You know so much, you must be able to save me. I lazily nodded. Are you sure you want me to save you? Kathleen, everything has a price. If I save your life, I must take something from you. In my previous life, my miserable death made my nature cruel. I love eating the flesh of heartless scumbags. This cruelty also made me absorb a lot of yin energy. Excessive yin energy can attract heavenly lightning. To dispel the yin energy, I must absorb human energy to balance it out. However, human energy can only be obtained voluntarily from the living or through a trade with them. Kathleen looked at me warily. What do you want from me? I smiled. Human energy. I save her life from the dead George. In return, she gives me her human energy. Knock, 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 knock. The knocking on the door became more urgent. Kathleen looked at me anxiously. What is human energy? What will happen to me if you take my human energy? I raised an eyebrow at Kathleen. Think carefully. You're the one asking me for help. I have no obligation to explain anything to you. Sweat dripped from Kathleen's forehead. She didn't bother to wipe it away and gritted her teeth. Okay, I agree. As long as you don't let the ghost skin me, I'll give you whatever you want. Okay. I snapped my fingers and got up from the bed. Let's go. I'll take you out of here. Kathleen looked shocked. Aren't you going to prepare? Take a peachwood sword, some black dog blood, or a Taoist talisman to fight the ghost? I laughed. The thing outside is nothing but an insect. I can crush it with one foot. Poor George. When he was alive, I scared him to death. After he died and became a ghost, he still had to be crushed by me. With a creak, I opened the door. The hallway was empty. No one. No ghost. No ghost. Kathleen peeked out from behind me, cautiously looking around. The ghost was knocking on the door just now. How could it disappear all of a sudden? I ran my fingers through my smooth black hair. I am a corpse person. Any ghost that sees me will vanish into thin air. Really? Your name is Ellie, so you must be amazing. Kathleen suddenly straightened her back. Stop bragging and patting yourself on the back. I think the ghost knocked and found no response, so it left on its own. I stared at her. What do you mean? I've changed my mind. The deal is off. Kathleen snorted. She let go of me and ran towards the elevator. You didn't fight the ghost. Our deal doesn't count. I won't give you my human energy. Humans are truly foolish and petty. If it weren't for my presence, she would have been skinned and eaten by now, a bloody corpse. I stared coldly at Kathleen's retreating figure. In my life, I despise betrayal the most. She probably didn't know. Angering me is far worse than angering a ghost. I coldly reached out towards Kathleen, who had just entered the elevator. My pale arm stretched like rubber, extending longer and longer, until it accurately pierced her eye socket. Ah! Crimson blood stained my pale, elongated fingers. Kathleen's face twisted in extreme pain, screaming, Ellie, help! Help me! I instantly appeared in front of her, looking at her indifferently. What's the matter? Save me. Please save me. Kathleen knelt before me again. The ghost gouged out my eyes. Please help me get them back. I smiled as I looked at her. It was I who gouged out your eyes. No. Impossible, you're human. How could your fingers stretch so long? Kathleen thought I didn't want to save her, still clutching me desperately. Ellie, the ghost is right beside me. Don't leave me. I swear, whatever human energy you want, I'll give it to you. I am a corpse person. A corpse, as in dead body. As I spoke, I slightly hooked my finger downwards. Now I don't want human energy anymore. I want your life. What are you saying? Kathleen convulsed in pain, writhing in the elevator. Ellie, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please, save me. I shook my head and sighed. People are always like this. When facing death, they abandon dignity and desperately beg, ugly and wretched. I squatted down, gently stroking Kathleen's face. Kathleen, since we are roommates, let me give you some advice. In your next life, be a person who keeps their promises. Just as I was about to use force, I suddenly sensed a strong human aura. This aura was so powerful it made me feel pressured. I quickly withdrew my fingers and pressed the elevator's close button. At the same time, the elevator door across from us opened, and a young man in white entered my sight. He was tall, with deep, dark eyes and fair skin like porcelain, appearing around 20. Yet I sensed a nearly 1,000-year-old Taoist energy fluctuation in him. I was startled. My instinct told me this was someone I couldn't afford to provoke. In my 500 years of life, it was my first time feeling nervous. As the elevator slowly descended, I closed my eyes slightly, my mind once again replaying the young man's handsome yet cold face. He was so handsome. I really wanted to seduce him. Damn. I slapped my own head. I've lived too long. Now I want to seduce both those I should and shouldn't provoke. Then, I reached out and crushed the elevator camera. With a snap, the elevator opened. I walked out nonchalantly. In the elevator lay a woman clutching her face, blood flowing. It was Kathleen. I spared her life. Not because I was kind, but the appearance of the young man in white made me refrain from causing more trouble. When I returned to the dormitory, I found our other roommate, Julie, scrolling through TikTok. She looked up and casually asked, "Why haven't Lily and Kathleen returned yet?" I smiled. One is dead. The other's eyes are gouged out. They probably won't come back. How do you know? At that moment, a clear voice sounded. I looked up and saw the young man in white standing at the door. He wore a white shirt and light-colored jeans with slightly messy bangs, his eyes like a deep pool, dark and calm. He came. This was my second time meeting him. Did he follow me? I unconsciously straightened my body, looking at him with a faint smile. Of course, I know. I was with them when they went to the hotel. I knew he was a Taoist. I knew he was powerful. I also knew he was my nemesis, someone I shouldn't provoke. But so what? My love brain, unchanged in my past life, is still unchangeable in this life. The young man walked into the dormitory, his voice clear. "You went to the hotel with them. How come they're dead but you're unharmed?" My gaze moved from his handsome face to his slightly protruding Adam's apple. He was really, really good looking. In my 500 years of life, I always thought that the world's handsome men were the same type, either tall and slender with delicate faces and a waist without excess flesh. But he surpassed any handsome man I'd ever seen by 1,000,000 times. He was taller than others. His face was more exquisitely perfect. The eyebrows, neither too thick nor thin, the eyes not too deep nor shallow, just right. He didn't look like a human, more like a computer-modeled perfection, every inch fitting the golden ratio. For a moment, I was lost. The young man seemed used to people staring at him, walked directly to me, grabbed my wrist. "Your roommates were skinned alive. Why are you fine?" Kathleen was skinned too. I lowered my head and wanted to laugh. It must have been George who killed Kathleen after I left the elevator. "Speak." The young man's grip on my wrist tightened slightly. His fair fingers were long and slender, feeling like a piece of jade soaked in water, warm and smooth. I fell into his arms, pretending to be afraid, trembling. I don't know anything." He suddenly let go of my hand. His cold eyes glanced at me indifferently. "I hope you're telling the truth." I fell into the chair, looking at him resentfully. After all, I am a beauty. Why is he so cold and heartless? But the colder he was, the more I liked him. The truth is, I really don't know. I looked up at him. My 2 roommates told me they were meeting online friends and asked me to go with them. I got to the hotel, booked a room, watched some videos, and fell asleep. When I woke up, I heard Kathleen screaming and saw her running into the elevator. I thought something had happened, so I followed. But when I got there, I found her eyes had been gouged out. As I spoke, I carefully observed him, but his face remained cold, without any emotion. "I've told you everything I know." I suddenly threw myself at him. "You said my 2 roommates were skinned. What happened? I'm so scared, boo-hoo." He had a faint fragrance, like incense, very light, but it made me feel at ease. He suddenly grabbed my neck, his voice indifferent. "You're not telling the truth." He looked slender and delicate, but his grip was strong, making my face flush red. What should I do? Before meeting him, I had never lied. "Boo-hoo, you made me break my rule." I gazed at him. He also looked at me. My eyes were flirtatious. His eyes were like still water. His demeanor made me like him even more. I kindly reminded. I suddenly thought of something. My 2 roommates had one thing in common. They both liked watching that male streamer. He let go of me. "Which male streamer?" "George." He opened the app and searched for the streamer. George was still dancing in the live stream. He must have fully absorbed the skins of Lily and Kathleen, his skin glowing white. Fans were sending gifs and comments. "George is so handsome, his skin is so fair, I love him." He only glanced at George and then muttered, "A revenant." I looked at him in surprise. pretending not to understand. A revenant? What's that? The young man didn't answer me, let go of my hand, and walked out of the dormitory. I smiled coquettishly, calling after him, "We'll meet again." He ignored me, his pace steady as he walked out. I turned back to the mirror, looking at my beautifully made-up face. I asked our other roommate, "Julie, do you think I'm beautiful?" Julie didn't respond. I looked up at her and saw she was standing there dumbfounded, staring at the young man's retreating figure. I shouted, "Julie!" Julie finally came to her senses, muttering, "Ellie, is he a star or a god?" I laughed. "No matter what he is, I'll get him. I believe that as long as he's a man, he won't escape my grasp." That night, I watched live streams all night. Looking at George's face on the screen, I used to think he was good looking. But now, compared to the young man in white, he made me feel sick. Perhaps because I had sent many gifts to George, he messaged me before ending the stream, thanking me for my support and asking if I wanted to meet. Of course I agreed. We arranged to meet at a cafe. Early the next morning, I sat by the window in the cafe, quietly sipping coffee and looking outside. It was drizzling. Pedestrians with umbrellas walked by in a hurry. I counted down in my head out of boredom. 10, 9. When I reached 9, a tall, slender young man in white approached, as I expected. He came. He was holding a black umbrella, still wearing yesterday's white shirt, walking into the cafe with a calm expression. He was like a cool, radiant moonlight. As soon as he entered, everyone, men and women alike, couldn't help but steal glances at him. But his dark eyes were focused on me. I was wearing a red silk camisole dress, slightly turning my face, pretending to look out the window. In novels, female protagonists are like this, with long, black, curly hair draped over their shoulders, holding a coffee cup, looking sad and wistful into the distance. And the male protagonist would appear before the female protagonist, asking what happened. Of course, the young man in white walked up to me as I wished, but he coldly said, "You are not human." I was dumbfounded. He really ruined the mood. I looked at him with wide eyes. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." "You have a human heartbeat, but not a human aura." He grabbed my wrist again, as if afraid I would escape. "What are you?" I gently touched his hand with my other finger. "I'll answer one question of yours if you answer one of mine, okay?" He remained silent. I gently stroked the veins on his hand, smiling. "What's your name?" He stayed silent. At that moment, a man in a bucket hat and black mask stood outside, looking in. It was George. In this period, he had eaten quite a few people, not only able to move in the daytime, but also exuding a thick, almost overwhelming stench of corpse energy. "Hello." I stood up and greeted George. George heard my voice, smiled, and instinctively walked towards me. But as soon as he saw me, he stopped abruptly. A piece of skin fell off his face. "Hey, you dropped something." A kind-hearted student next to him bent down to pick it up. But as soon as she saw the piece of face tissue, she screamed in horror, "Ah!" with a snap, snap. George's face started falling apart even more, bits and pieces dropping off, revealing his original rotting face. He hastily covered his face, running around like a headless chicken. "Stop!" the young man in white shouted, wanting to chase George, but I held his hand tightly. "You haven't told me your name." He tried to use force, even some Taoist magic, but couldn't shake me off. I was puzzled. This person was strange. He looked young, but exuded an ancient Taoist aura. Yet his strength was no match for me. What was going on? Was he hiding his true power? Or was he really this weak? After a few seconds, he frowned and looked at me. "Noah Hall." I let go of his hand. "Your name is beautiful." He quickly dashed outside. I called after his white figure, "I'm Ellie." He didn't stop, moving like the wind, swiftly disappearing. Noah Hall was chasing George. I was following Noah Hall. We quickly arrived at an abandoned building on the outskirts. This place was originally planned to be a high-end villa. But early in construction, a worker saw a woman walking alone, got drunk, assaulted, and killed her. Unbeknownst to him, the woman was pregnant with twins, wearing red, and was bricked into the wall. She died tragically, full of resentment. So she became a terrifying mother-child ghost. After becoming a ghost, she specifically killed those who harmed her. This place had seen dozens of deaths, becoming an abandoned building. Now it was noon, but the building was shrouded in heavy yin energy, the sky dark, no light could penetrate, only a chilling cold. George, having some sense, led Noah Hall here. Once inside, George immediately hid in the walls. Noah Hall held a long sword, coldly shouting, "Evil creature, come out!" I concealed my aura, hiding in the walls, quietly watching Noah Hall. His sword, with intricate ancient patterns, was extremely old, but the blade was sharp and cold. Clearly it was an ancient sword, preserved for 1,000 years, longer than my life. George, hiding in the wall behind Noah Hall, extended his rotting fingers, intending to sneak attack and stab his back. But Noah Hall seemed unaware. I thought of a saying, gold and jade on the outside, rot and decay on the inside. I had thought Noah Hall was impressive, but he was just a paper tiger, such a waste of a handsome face. Ugh! Noah Hall spat out blood. George's rotting finger had pierced his chest, so forceful it almost protruded from his front. I sighed again. What a waste of a perfect chest. You were born human but died a beast, continuously killing and skinning women. You deserve to die. Noah Hall swung his sword at the rotting finger, piercing his chest. With a snap, George's finger broke off. He roared in rage. I skinned others, you cut off my finger. But when she skinned me, why didn't you cut off her hand? Noah Hall pointed his sword at George's rotting forehead. Who skinned you? It was... George was about to say my name, but I released my corpse aura, reminding him I was there. He fell silent, his bloody mouth opening wide to bite Noah Hall. Die! I want to skin you and become you. Noah Hall's ability was lacking, but his ancient sword was formidable. With one swift stroke, he cut George in half. Speak! Who skinned you? Noah Hall seemed to have shown mercy as George struggled in his final moments. It was... I half exposed my face from the wall, smiling at George. It was... Noah Hall was anxious. Who was it? It was... In the end, George didn't say my name. In life, I killed him. In death, he was still terrified of me. Thus, George's ghost was completely destroyed. Without the support of his soul, his already rotting body collapsed like a pile of decayed flesh, disintegrating into a pool of muck. Noah Hall sheathed his sword, frowning as he walked out of the abandoned building. I followed quietly behind him. In front of me, he showed no emotion even though I was a beauty. Yet, facing a dead body or ghost, his emotions fluctuated wildly. He was truly an interesting person. I felt a playful urge and was about to tease him when I suddenly sensed a wave of yin energy approaching. And not far away, George's decomposing body began to spin, suddenly exploding. Pop! The area was filled with a mist of blood and rotting flesh. I turned to see a woman in a crimson dress with a large, pregnant belly floating in the corridor. Her eyes were blood red, so red they seemed to bleed, but her skin was pitch black, as if she were one with the darkness. From her rounded belly, 4 small hands were seen clawing out. This was the mother-child ghost. The ghost looked at me but ignored me, extending her sharp black nails towards Noah Hall. Men, all men deserve to die. Noah Hall, having been pierced through the chest by George, wasn't as quick to react, dodging just in time to avoid the ghost's attack. He asked, "Who are you?" The ghost didn't answer, only laughing mournfully, repeatedly chanting the same words, "Men, all men deserve to die." I looked at her indifferently. She was pitch black all over, her yin energy so dense it could blot out the sky. She had achieved perfection. Perfection means losing all sense of self. Her actions were driven by her dying resentment. Her resentment, it seemed, was to kill all men. And from another perspective, reaching perfection meant she would be noticed by the underworld. Generally, ghosts at this level would be captured by ghost hunters and locked in the deepest pits of hell, being tortured until their soul disintegrated. Since you're stubborn, don't blame me for being ruthless. Noah Hall's gaze hardened, raising his sword to stab the ghost's belly. The ghost wasn't afraid at all, suddenly lifting her red dress to reveal her pitch-black belly. The belly began to split open, slowly revealing a pair of blood-soaked hands, followed by 2 grotesque heads pushing their way out. Flesh? I want to eat flesh. The twin ghost babies, looking like centipedes, clung tightly to Noah Hall's body. Noah Hall showed some compassion, not immediately cutting the ghost babies down, but the ghost mother was determined to kill him, her black hair rising like a dense net, tightly wrapping around Noah Hall. I remained hidden in the wall, quietly observing Noah Hall. He exuded 1,000 years of Taoist cultivation, but faced with a slightly powerful ghost, he was about to be overwhelmed. So, should I save him? I was startled. I actually thought of saving him. I only ever enjoyed skinning handsome men. But for the first time, I had a genuine urge to save someone. No, I mentally argued with myself. I died miserably, scalded and skinned. Did anyone save me? Life and death are destined by fate. I wouldn't break my rule to save. While I was lost in thought, a brilliant blue light flashed. At the same time, the ghost mother let out a heartbreaking scream. I focused my gaze and saw that Noah Hall's sword had pierced the ghost mother's throat. The twin ghost babies were also strangled, their bodies severed. Come out. Noah Hall's finger moved slightly, the sword withdrawing from the ghost mother's throat, the sharp tip pointing straight at my hiding place in the wall. I gulped. Only then did I realize that Noah Hall's face had turned sinister, his eyes glowing an unusual blue. That blue was dazzling, more brilliant than the sun. He swung his sword at me. I hurriedly revealed myself. Don't kill me, I'm a good person. A corpse person, neither human nor ghost dare to cause trouble. Noah Hall's expression was cold, his blue eyes venomous. Even though I obeyed and revealed myself, he showed no mercy, his sword aimed at my forehead. His body was filled with Taoist energy, pressing down on me, making me shiver, unable to move. I widened my eyes. In my final moment, all I felt was immense sorrow. Damn it. He was so handsome I hadn't seduced him, and now I was going to die. I was really unwilling to go like this. Just as I thought I was about to die, destined to reincarnate and never see him again, I saw Noah Hall's blue eyes fade. He closed his eyes and collapsed to the ground. Hey, are you all right? I cautiously called out to him. He didn't respond. I didn't dare let my guard down, picking up a stone and throwing it at him. Wake up! He still didn't respond. Confirming he had fainted, I walked over and pinched his face. Very smooth, very tender, like tofu, flawless. Spit, spit, spit. I cursed myself. Now wasn't the time to flirt. The important thing was this person didn't know my identity initially. How did his eyes turn blue suddenly? And he became a completely different person. Not only knowing my true nature, but being 1,000 times stronger than before. Suddenly, I thought of movies I had seen before. Maybe he had dual personalities. One personality was weak and kind, but had no abilities. The other personality was sinister and powerful. Could Noah Hall be such a person? Or perhaps, an ancient Taoist soul living within Noah Hall? When Noah Hall faced danger, the Taoist soul would awaken. I couldn't figure out the reason, but I knew Noah Hall was a ticking time bomb. I should kill Noah Hall now, while his other personality or the Taoist soul is dormant. But in the end, I didn't do it. I might be evil, but I only skinned heartless men. Noah Hall hadn't wronged me. No, to be precise, we hadn't even had any conflict, so I wouldn't kill him. After a long while, Noah Hall woke up. He opened his eyes, his dark eyes cold, his voice indifferent. Why are you here? I examined him from head to toe. You don't remember? He stayed silent. It seemed he was unaware of his second personality. Thinking this, I said, you were entangled by the ghost mother's hair and fainted. I saved you. I had said before, I never lied. But now, I broke my rule. This was the second lie I told him. Noah Hall remained silent. I helped him up, taking the opportunity to grope him. Don't be afraid. As long as I'm here, I'll protect you. He pushed me away, looking me up and down. Who are you? How did you follow me from the cafe to here? And how could you see such a fierce ghost? I smiled. I'm a Taoist too, and I was born with yin-yang eyes. This was the third lie I told him. In the future, I thought in the future, we would have many stories, and I would tell him many more lies. At this moment, the fierce ghost mother had dissipated. The sky cleared. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, illuminating the vast land. A young woman in a red dress and a young man in white slowly left the desolate abandoned building.